A few months ago, my friend asked me one simple question. What Ark map was the best to start out on? I answered that question by ranking every map on its difficulty, but in hindsight, I think this should have only been one factor in my answer. The real question I should have answered was, what is the best map that Ark has to offer? I've come up with 3 criteria to rank all of Ark's maps as objectively as possible. How fun is the map? How balanced is the difficulty of the map? And how much content does the map offer? I'll rank these maps with both PvE and PvP in mind, but I'll rank the maps based on how good they are as a standalone map. Without further ado, let's get into number 13. In last place, I have The Center. The Center is my least favorite map in Ark by far. It offers nothing new, has an overly easy boss fight, and notoriously poor optimization. While it does look really awesome and has amazing caves for exploration and base building like the North Ice and Pearl Caves, the gameplay just suffers really hard here. The map feels way too large for the lack of content that it suffers from. I do like going around the map and exploring, but once you get through everything at least once or twice, it's just not that interesting. It also suffers pretty heavily from not having fast enough flyers or other mobility options on the map. The Center could really use a creature like a Griffin, Wyverns, or the Maywing. The massive underworld area probably looks the best on the map in my opinion, but it also doesn't add that much to the gameplay outside of the jumping puzzle caves, so I can't really bump it up that much from this portion. Gameplay is the most important thing for me, and the Center disappoints me in this category more than any other map in Ark by a wide margin. Traveling is tedious, interesting features in the map rarely impact gameplay outside of being a cool base spot, and the boss fight is just a recycled arena of past bosses with way too weak stats. It's just far too easy. All 3 arena boss fights in Ark feel underwhelming as a person who likes the late game challenge a lot and the unique content. And with me already disliking the arenas, it's not a good tell for the Center that this is by far my least favorite arena boss fight in the game. One element of this map that I do love is the viability of underwater farming. It's arguably the best way to farm on this map, which I really do like because it changes up the gameplay loop a lot and makes the map a little bit more interesting. It just isn't enough to balance out with all the negatives I already mentioned, so it's in last place. At number 12, I have Astraeos. It's unfair to rank Astraeos against fully completed maps because the map simply hasn't been done yet, but it's definitely worse than most of Ark's maps in its current form. Just to clarify, this ranking doesn't include the mod exclusive content, which includes the Minotaur and Seahorse custom creatures and the super awesome ships, which totally should be added. Astraeos has top tier aesthetics, is incredibly optimized from my experience, and has a really cool boss fight in the Medusa boss fight, but there is one issue that I just can't get over. So much of the map is water, and so much of the map feels entirely empty with horrible spawn balancing. There's just massive chunks of the map that don't have nearly enough creature spawns, and even underwater, there's a severe lack of creatures. There's a lot of great PvE base locations on the map, and in terms of PvP base spots, it's pretty decent so far and should get a lot better as the map gets completed. I love the Ark Island bringing back the OSDs and the element veins, and I'm thoroughly excited to see how the map looks in a completed state. I think it has a ton of potential. The main thing holding it back right now is just the fact that it's not done. At number 11, I have Crystal Isles. Crystal Isles is a big step up from the bottom 2 maps in my eyes, but it's very flawed. The biggest issue is its lack of difficulty and huge size. The most obvious example of this is the fact that it hands out wyverns like candy on the beach once you get to level 65. The other obvious issue with the difficulty is that there's no artifact caves or other challenging world events, so there's just one boss fight and the map has no other late game content and it's way too easy. The Crystal Wyvern Queen is actually a boss that I think is pretty fun. It's just not hard enough to balance out for the rest of the map, and the boss is a flying boss, so the stats are pretty bad if you just have decent RGs, wyverns, blood wyverns, anything like that is really effective here. My last issue with the map is the lack of PvP viable base spots and not really great early game PvP as well. The best PvP base spots on the map are underwater bubbles, which are super boring to live in and to raid, so there's just not really a way to have fun when you play PvP on this map. It's better than the Center for having better creature variety, and the aesthetic of the individual biomes I think is better. The boss fight's also far better, and it's higher than Astraeos because the map is fully complete. With all that being said, I expect Astraeos to easily pass this map over time. If you're enjoying the video, I'd appreciate it a ton if you could like and subscribe. While you're down there, follow my Twitch if you want to watch my 100 Days Nuzlocke challenge by clicking the first link in the description. Thanks! At number 10, this might be controversial, I have Genesis 1. Genesis 1 is a really great map with 2 flaws. It's nearly impossible to beat in single player and is horribly balanced in terms of difficulty, and it has biome teleportation. Using HLNA to teleport between and within biomes takes away a lot from Ark's usual immersion and makes escaping danger far too easy. This feature especially takes away from high tier items like the tech teleporter because you can already teleport yourself, your creature, and all the gear or items on both of you, so why do you need a tech teleporter? The reward of unlocking these high tier luxury exclusive items like the tech teleporter is just really mitigated when you can do it the entire game, and I'm not a fan at all. The hexagon shop is also something that I dislike as a mechanic because it removes the need to farm certain resources and takes away from the exploration that's required on most maps. The difficulty scaling on this map is also just terrible. Most notably, some of the gauntlets and the multiplayer basketball game are just not completable in single player. The gauntlets are so poorly scaled that even in multiplayer on base settings, they're basically impossible as well. Motor is a cool boss because it's so unique, but the Alpha Master Controller is also just ridiculous. It took me multiple tries to beat this solo with a capped theory line, and I already knew what I was doing going in and had beat it before. Some pros for Genesis 1 are that it has a ton of content, only 168 out of 176 missions are required, so you can skip the ones that are impossible, and I love the no flyer aspect. Flyers make Ark more boring in my eyes because it takes away a lot of the experience and the danger from the game. I love the Bloodstalker and I like the Magmasaur and the Megashalon, but I hate the insect swarms, Astrocetus, and dislike the Parakeet Fish School. Genesis 1 is also really solid in PvP. It has a ton of great base spots, unique biomes and creatures that lead to fun interactions, and a lot of rat holes for single player as well. It's just so bad in PvE that I had to rank it very low on the list. At number 9, I have Scorched Earth, and this was just barely higher than Gen 1. My biggest issue with this map is the difficulty curve is so lopsided. Scorched Earth suffers from front-loading almost all of its difficulty to the first 5 hours of a playthrough. The intense heat and lack of both water and bushes make the map a nightmare at the start, but once you get situated with the heat-resistant armor set and a reliable water source, there's basically no issues for you at that point throughout the rest of the playthrough. This map's caves, boss fight, and overall exploration are simply easy once you get a Wyvern. In terms of PvP, Scorched Earth is very solid, but it's not the best of the best because there's just not a huge variety of base spots. Central Cave is obviously really good, but besides that, Church Cave is okay and nothing else is even viable. The other thing I'm not a fan of on this map is the lack of creature and biome variety. I do like the creatures on Scorched Earth, but there's just not enough interesting new additions besides the Wyverns that make me really excited. And while I do like the fact that the map has a clear desert-themed identity, I don't like that there's basically zero biome variety throughout the entire map. The other issue with this map is the weather conditions. Random sandstorms in the wild are super annoying even if you have a Jerboa that warns you because they slow you down so much. I also think the Manticore just needs to be adjusted in general. It's too easy and too tedious at the same time. It needs to have a better health pool or just better stats in general, and it needs to land way more often so you take RNG out of the fight. I also wouldn't hate the idea of removing the ability to use flyers in this boss fight. I think it makes it a little bit too trivial, so if you took that out and made the rock golems a threat for every single strategy that was being used, I think that would make the fight better as well. Definitely a fun map, but it's not without its flaws. At number 8, I have Lost Island. Lost Island is a good map. It packs in every engram, tons of dinos, and some of Ark's most fun endgame content. The biggest issues for Lost Island is that it's absolutely enormous and the optimization is terrible. The other issue that I have with it is that nothing really feels that unique. Aberration has the whole underground thing going for it, Extinction has the wasteland biome, even Ragnarok has something like the canyons, which is unique. This map just doesn't really have anything like that. I just prefer when a map brings something new to the game, something where you can point at a biome or a specific aspect of a map and say, oh yeah, that's that map. For example, oh look, those are the chalk hills, that's Valguero. Lost Island really misses the mark on that for me, but it is still good for a couple of reasons. This map is good for PvE and for PvP because it has a lot of good base spots, some cool new PvP creatures, and the endgame PvE content is super fun. I love the lava cave that has the Magmasaurs in it, and I think the other caves are fun as well. The Dinopithecus King is also one of my favorite boss fights in the game because there's constantly a risk of getting killed by the Dinopithecus even if your army is strong. I just really love the design of this boss as well, and especially the arena that it's in. I think the arena is incredible. I love how it jumps around so sporadically, how it yells at you, how it's designed. Just an awesome boss, awesome arena, really cool fight. Also, one more thing before I move on. Screw taming the Amargasaurus. That taming process sucks. At number 7, I have Genesis 2, and you might think that I am absolutely insane for putting it here, but hear me out. Genesis 2 is the most underrated map in Ark by a mile. You start with a free tech suit, but the map actually balances it out somewhat well. The only issues with this map in my eyes are that the early game is super easy, and the mission count can feel pretty tedious. This map was designed with PvP in mind, but it's also very fun in PvE. It has great base spots like the underwater bubbles and all of the connectors that go from the sides of the map to the lunar biome. The creature cast from the Genesis 2 DLC is very PvP oriented, and the early game is fast, which makes PvP even more fun. This map just has a bit of everything. The lunar biome in the center of the map stands out to me because of how unique and cool it is. I get that some people don't like the resource rotation mechanic, but I think it's really well thought out. The lunar biome mechanic kind of reminds me of how the Aberration surface biome works, where if you plan around the day-night cycle effectively, you can get more value out of your drop runs. So I like that mechanic. I think the skill curve in this sort of aspect is very cool. Rockwell Prime is a solid boss fight that has a really rewarding skill curve as well. The missions are night and day compared to Gen 1. They're much more balanced. I think they're more fun. And even though missions do get kinda repetitive, there is probably too many of them in both Genesis 1 and 2. I genuinely enjoyed going through the Genesis 2 missions on my first playthrough. People hate on this map because you start with a tech suit, but my biggest critiques about the map all focus on the creatures. I do like certain creatures like the Shadowmane, Astrodelphus, Ferox, and Voidworm, but they're all designed primarily for PvP with the exception of the Ferox. With that being said, they all work well on this map specifically and are fun to use. These creatures only really become a huge issue when they're able to be transferred to other maps. Creatures like the Tech Strider and the Skiff are also OP, but on this map specifically, everything is OP because you have tech suits, so they're not that ridiculous. The net is also one of the most useful items Ark has ever released, even though it's pretty OP, but it does match the retirement theme that this map has in my eyes. I just think it's really easy, it's very relaxed, and it's a fun experience, so I just put it at number 7. At number 6, I have the Island. The Island is Ark's bread and butter map. It's small, has no DLC engrams or creatures, and is riddled with low-level dinos, but it nails the Ark experience at its core. It's perfectly balanced with 4 unique bosses and tough caves for PvE, plus solid PvP base spots like Ice, Carno, and the underwater caves. There's just a lot to love on both sides of the game. Although it does have a lot of what makes Ark great, it does miss out on a lot of the extra DLC content that the later maps bring. The map is also small compared to most of the game's other maps, but it has good optimization, which is a huge plus. I'm not a huge fan of the underwater area on the map either because I think it's pretty underwhelming. It's basically just a really steep drop off from the shallow to deep areas, and there's not enough creature spawns or resource spawns in my eyes. One major issue I have is that there's no naturally spawning black pearls, which is just super annoying. Having to kill the Eurypterids and the Ammonites on the bottom or farm Tuzos is just obnoxious. With all that being said, there is a really redeeming quality about the underwater area because there's a ton of mini caves and 2 big caves, which I do really like. I also think the underwater caves are very fun to explore in PvE, which is an unpopular opinion, but I think they're well designed. With all that being said, the biggest issue by far is how horrible the creature levels are on this map. Trying to find a level 150 of anything you need is a hassle. It will be a lot of the time unless you're super lucky, but there's no really huge issue besides this. For what it's worth, I do think there's a pretty sizable tier gap between the top 5 Ark maps and everything below them. Starting off my top 5, I have Valguero. Valguero has a ton of content. It has a world mini-boss, the map looks awesome, and it even has a diverse cast of creatures and biomes. The only huge issue I have with the map is the boss fight. The arena style is something that I'm really not a fan of, and out of the arena fights, this one is probably the most obnoxious because you get the Manticore and the Dragon flying around with the Megapithecus to deal with. It has the Chalk Hills as its map-specific biome, as well as an Aberration and underwater biome that I love. The Deinonychus is the map-specific creature, and I love it. It's easily a top 5 creature in the game in my eyes. The entire aesthetic of Valguero is amazing, so you'd think it's a PvE map, but it can also absolutely be played in PvP. The Aberration Zone is really solid if you want to build a Valguero tree down there. It's decent because there's no flyers allowed in the area, so you can build a really strong base there. And in PvE, the late game content is really good except for the boss fight. I think the caves and the mini-boss are really cool concepts. I also like that the map only has fire and ice wyverns because it gives those 2 creatures room to shine. My favorite late game content on this map was probably the spider cave. I just think it was so badass seeing a broodmother guarding the entrance to a cave. I immediately went back and got more stuff when I saw that. I was so worried when I saw that the first time. I think the 2 biggest things that would make Valguero better is that in the arena fight, I think that there should be rock golems summoning from the Manticore. They don't summon rock golems currently, and I think it would be way more fun if they did. And my second major critique is that there's not enough of the Aberration creature cast spawning in that underground area. If rock drakes and reapers were tameable, this would easily be a top 3 map. On the bright side for the boss fight, at least you get a load of tech engrams, so it is really worth doing. At number 4, I have Fjordur. Fjordur is an incredible map. It has an insane roster of creatures, amazing design throughout, 7 boss fights including 4 completely unique fights, and 4 separate areas that are unique and gimmicky in their own ways in a great way. My only issues with this map are the absurd amount of alpha spawns and the biome teleportation system, which I'm just not a fan of in any map. Teleporting does save you travel time, especially considering the map is massive, but the mechanic still breaks immersion and makes resource gathering way too easy. It also has the same problem as Genesis 1, where it makes avoiding danger far too easy. Fjordur also spawns a disproportionately high amount of alpha creatures, which is a bit annoying especially in the early game, but it's not too bad. It has 3 subworlds under the large main world, and each world has a unique theming that makes it stand out. Jotunheim is my favorite subworld. I love the snow biomes in Ark always, and this is easily one of Ark's best. Jotunheim also has my favorite Fjordur exclusive boss, Steinbjorn. Fenrir Sulfur is also an amazing final boss, but it's just not as fun as Steinbjorn in my opinion. The aesthetic of the entire map is amazing, and I love the caves. The map exclusive creatures are some of Ark's best as well. The standouts are the Desmodus and the Fjordhawk for sure, but the Fenrir and the Andrewsarchus are also awesome. If you didn't notice, that's every single Fjordur specific creature, all of them are great. My only issue with this map besides the biome teleportation is it just isn't as replayable as my top 3 in my opinion. This definitely could be due to some nostalgia and bias, but I think it's more because it has a similar issue to Lost Island where I don't really feel like Fjordur stands out. It kind of just feels to me like Fjordur is a mashup of other maps. It's definitely really great, there's a ton of content and there's a lot to love. It's fantastic in PvE for the late game content. It's very big. There's a lot of content on the map, so it works in PvP too because of how many caves there are. It's really well optimized also. That's something I love about Fjordur. It's just not adding as much to the game as the top 3. It doesn't give us as much in terms of content that we haven't seen before, so I decided to put it 4th. This was a really tough call for me, but I'm going to put Ragnarok just a bit higher than Fjordur. I love Ragnarok. It has unique biomes, 2 unique mini-bosses when mini-bosses were never a thing before this map came out, challenging caves, and a balanced creature roster that makes the map amazing. The boss fight is definitely underwhelming, but besides that and getting anti-mesh at the end of the ice cave, this map is essentially perfect in terms of Ark maps for PvE especially. In PvP, the map is fun, especially for early game fighting, but it certainly isn't awesome for late game PvP, and this did cost it a lot of points compared to the top 2. With that being said though, it does have a couple of decent base spots for smaller tribes to medium tribes. The waterfall cave especially is pretty solid. Other spots like the Crystal Cave, the Plateaus, and even underwater bubbles are pretty viable. The reason I sided with Ragnarok over Fjordur is that it flows better because there's no biome teleportation, and it just has more features that stand out. The canyon, highlands, murder snow, and absolutely incredible caves make Ragnarok a one-of-a-kind experience. It's well optimized with one major exception, that being, of course, the end of the ice cave where you get anti-meshed all the time, has a fantastic roster of creatures, and the map layout is honestly perfect. The problems on Ragnarok are 3 things. The late game PvP content just isn't great. The ice cave has a game-breaking anti-mesh bug like I've mentioned before, and the boss fight is just not great. The dragon and manticore combo is just boring. The rock golem summons do make it a bit more interesting, and I personally think this is the most fun out of the 3 arena boss fights in Ark, but it's far from being good. Yet again, all the arenas do suck, so it being the best out of those 3 doesn't mean much. To end on a positive note, I love every single biome on this map, and I love how the creature spawns are on this map as well. There's so much thought put into every single creature spawn, it's really impressive. It's so detailed, even the underwater area has certain dedicated areas for creatures like the Tuzo Trench. The caves are where Ragnarok really shines as well. The 2 mini bosses, the Ice Worm Queen and the Lava Golem, are great for farming drops, and they're just really cool to be in the game. And on top of the mini bosses, the caves have puzzles, challenges, and other things that demand unique preparation. This map really was revolutionary for the time it came out, and it still holds up. At number 2, I have Extinction. Extinction is almost a perfect map. The wasteland dividing biomes is interesting, the world events are fun and require a learning curve, and there's tons of creatures here that are insanely cool. To top it all off, the King Titan is probably the coolest boss fight in the entire game. It's easily my favorite. The Titan boss fights having no arena does balance out for the fact that their stats and abilities are insane. It makes it really cool and really fun because it just isn't something you see on other maps. It also feels a lot higher stakes because it doesn't transport you to an arena, so it's happening on the world you've been building on, and it feels really epic because you can bring as many creatures as you want and these Titans are towering over you. The addition of the Dreadnoughtus in Ark Ascended does tank this map down below my first ranked map because it makes the map's late game content just a little bit too easy. Its lack of caves also does bring it down a bit too. The 3 boss summon caves are really fun, but it's just not enough variety in caves in my opinion. The map is still very challenging due to OSDs, element veins, the wasteland, the corrupted creatures, and the tough boss fights, but I just think it isn't the best map that Ark has to offer. I enjoy the process of taming the smaller titans to fight the King Titan. I think the map layout is exceptional. Being divided up by the wasteland biome that's dangerous is a really cool concept, and I love the fact that the map is really good in both PvE and PvP. I'd argue that Extinction is the best PvP map in the game. There's tons of good base spots for PvP, including the red light pillars, and one of the best alpha tribe spots in the game in the Extinction tree. It's essentially just owning the entire sunken forest, and these base spots are almost impossible to wipe. They are so tough, but the PvP there is so fun. I love the open world alpha PvP fighting. It's much better in my opinion than the cave PvP or other styles of PvP, so this map's combat is just right for me. I love it. There's also a plethora of rat holes in the Sanctuary and the Wasteland especially. This map just has so much to offer. The Manic Armor being too OP used to be the biggest issue with this map by far because it just plagued the entire scene of Ark, but it's been nerfed to the point where I think it's pretty balanced now and it's not an issue at all. It's really hard to top Extinction, but in my opinion, one map unquestionably does. At number 1, I have Aberration. Aberration is perfect. It's challenging while not being unfairly difficult. The map's underground theme and descension into more difficult zones is amazing. The no flyer challenge is perfectly executed on this map, and there's just no other experience in Ark like this. The fact that every single biome in this map is new, unique, and ties together incredibly well already sets it above every other map in the game, but the great features don't stop there. The Rockwell boss is an awesome boss. There's tons of secrets on the map to discover, like the cactus broth hidden in the back of Glowtail Cave some of the time. Finding alpha tributes can be annoying because of how rare the creatures are, but it does force you to explore the entire map, and the map is worth exploring. And the creature cast on Aberration is simply the best in Ark by a mile. Rock Drakes, Reapers, Ravagers, Karkinos, and Basilisks are all top tier creatures. Exploring this map for the first time was genuinely one of the coolest gaming experiences I've ever had, and the map isn't only good in PvE. This is one of the best PvP maps in the game, unquestionably. Amazing base spots for both big tribes and small groups, no flyers, cool PvP items like Z-nades, a well-balanced creature list, and very solid performance all lead the map to being top tier in this mode. I mean, the rat holes on Aberration alone could be an entire hour-long video. It's just insane, and there's so many good alpha spots like the Shadow Cave and Glowtail Cave as well. Besides severe meshing issues for the Shadow Cave, which can be really annoying, and the Desert Titan being able to get transferred here for some reason, this map is perfect for PvP. I know that I said I'm considering maps in a vacuum, but the Desert Titan thing is so dumb that I just had to mention it. The caves are really great for exploration and PvE. The surface contains the best blueprints on the map and has a shifting day-night cycle that forces you to pay attention and learn the map. The best creatures are the Reaper and the Rock Drake, which simply cannot be speedrun in the early game because you have to get Hazmat or have the game knowledge to get hit by a lamprey and work on a tight timer. The Blue Zone has an insane amount of metal and other good resources, so you're rewarded for expanding and getting stronger to prep for that area, and the Blue and Red Zone have biome-specific gems that are exceptionally good. Nameless and Seekers target you depending on if you have lights off or on, which leads to you needing to make on-the-fly decisions, which is really fun. This map just has an insanely cool skill curve because at the start, the map seems super impossible, but once you get good, it is just a really challenging, but fairly challenging map. The importance of planning, perfect biomes, top tier graphics and performance, great balancing, and the fact that it's awesome in both PvE and PvP easily make Aberration Ark's best map ever. Thank you to every one of my amazing members. You really help make these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video and want to see other great maps Ark has to offer, check out my top modded maps video on screen now where I cover the top 10 modded Ark maps in detail. See you there. Peace.